Welcome to the Hungaroring then for the fourth round of the International GTOpen season. It's Sunday, race day number 2 of the weekend, and we have a 60-minute race with a 12-minute driver change window in the middle on this 4.4 kilometer, 14-turn circuit here at the Hungaroring venue. Just outside Budapest, this circuit has been filled to the rafters with supporters. You're seeing some footage from earlier on of the pit walk, which was very busy indeed. The fans were crowding around to take a look at these spectacular GT3 machines, now making their way to the grandstands or their chosen viewing facilities as we get ready for the big 60-minute race. And there is the car that took the win yesterday. Alan Valente, Florian Scholzer in at the number 33 Team GT Mercedes claimed the overall win and Pro-Am honours yesterday. A great result for the number 33 crew, but it's the 133 that's on pole position for today's race. That's the car you just see leaving pit lane there. David Fuminelli, the Kessel Racing Ferrari, starting on pole position in the car that he will hand over to Murat Çahadaroglu later in the day. Fuminelli with another one of his signature qualifying performances. Officially speaking, it is his second pole position of the season. However, he did, of course, top qualifying 1 at Spa last time out. That was, of course, though, an event where the grid was determined by average times. Therefore, it wasn't officially a pole position because they didn't start on pole. But Fuminelli, nonetheless, right at the sharp end of qualifying, as he so often is, and he's joined, as he so often is, by Joe Osborne there on the front row of the grid in the Team Optimum Motorsport McLaren. And you've got 4 manufacturers in the top 4 because it's David Fuminelli in the Kessel Ferrari, the Optimum Motorsport McLaren of Joe Osborne, Yannick Mettler in the SPS Automotive Performance Mercedes, Olip Racing's representing Audi with Karel Bash at the wheel. He starts 4th on the grid. There are the 3rd and 4th place cars together on the circuit. Mettler and Bash will be on the 2nd row of the grid together. So 4 manufacturers in the top 4, 4 different teams in the top 4, George. The fans that are here at the circuit, and there are a good many of them, are in for a treat.
They are in for a treat, absolutely spot on. And obviously there is the V12 Aston Martin that has claimed and stole the hearts of many here this weekend, including one Adam Weller, who sat next to me. Big fan of this particular car and the sound it makes. Yeah. Certainly many of them, and I think the crowd's certainly adorning over the sound of this particular engine. But no, a pleasure to have it with us on the grid, and being, well, certainly making up the rest of it. Hanno Santa is actually driving that one for the start of this. You know, I see Joe Osborne there, a little flick, just warming up the tyres, getting his car ready, just aggressively swerving left and right, just to make sure that the heat gets transferred into the rubber. But a wonderful visit, not quite enough for top spot, though a great recovery off the back of a disappointing Spa-Francorchamps. Certainly Joe Osborne will be looking ahead at this race as an option, or certainly a very optimal place to certainly try and score some big points.
Absolutely, yes. After a non-score at Spa, points on the board for Optimum are of the utmost importance. There is Yannick Mettler pulling up in that number 54 SPS Automotive Mercedes. Here is Benja Hites in the 63 car, the Oregon Lamborghini, that on the road crossed the line first yesterday, but 15 seconds of time penalties were applied post-race, 10 seconds for a Leonardo Polcini jump start, and a further 5 because of a short pit stop. Their race then ultimately resulted in disappointment. There's that V12 Vantage then. It's remarkable. A decade ago, I was watching those cars in their first year in the British GT Championship on the Spectators' Banks at Brands Hatch. They seemed very common back then, but now you wheel out an old GT3 car and everyone starts cranking their necks to take a 2nd, 3rd and 4th look. And the cameras seem to love the car just as much as the spectators here at the circuit. It is such a colourful and exotic grid in the International GTOpen. So many different manufacturers, so many different colour schemes on display. There's one of them rather borrowed for Imperiale Racing, the blended chassis for Il Barone Rampante for Giuseppe Cipriani after he had his part to play in the massive collision at the start of the year, although it was Alex Frasinetti at the wheel at the time in the first race at Estoril. A huge smash at turn 4 on the first lap. Unfortunately, wrote off the original car for the year, owned and driven by Giuseppe Cipriani. So, car 2.0, and he...
Yeah, Davide Fuminelli, we can just see they're lining up in first place right now. The Italian, after a superb qualifying run, managed to notch himself up on pole position. Alongside him is Joe Osborne as well, a man who will certainly be looking to recover again from Spa after a pretty decent race one for Optimum Motorsport. Not quite enough, though, to secure the race win. I'm sure they'll have bigger prizes on their mind. Yannick Mettler with Dexter Muller standing by the door, watching on. Certainly stern, focused, and a wonderful qualifying performance, certainly from Yannick Mettler and that of the SPS Performance Mercedes. There as well, we have the Olymp Racing, Carol Bash, the new engine installed, didn't seem phased at all when it was installed, managed to pull together a great qualifying run to land a top 4 placement, and will certainly look to revel into turn 1.
Yeah, he went easy on the car for the first half of the session, and then went full to the bore. Apologies for coughing on air there, George. That's never something I've had to do before. And I mean coughing literally on the air in the room. I don't know how I did that. Alan Valente in 5th place. Christian Korzanowski there in P6. A great result for the AM Ferrari driver. Not the highest AM placing we've seen this year. That goes to Jamie Stanley at Paul Ricard earlier this year in an AF Corsa Ferrari. But nonetheless, a good showing for Korzanowski ahead of both of the Oregon team Lamborghinis. Glenn van Berlo, the talented young Dutch driver, 7th on the grid, and he'll be looking to scythe his way up through the pack, as will this man, Ben Jahites, in the Oregon team Lamborghini. And then we have a returning driver on row 5 of the grid in P9. You see the 93 Mercedes just there on the side of screen briefly. Fran Rueda at the wheel of that car. Fran, who raced for a good number of years in this series on a full-time basis, took 2 runner-up vice-champion positions, if you will, in previous years, and he is a driver who's looking to make his mark on the GT3 racing scene once again. And then, of course, there's Jesse Krohn on the 5th row of the grid as well, the mighty BM. Highlights then from race 1 yesterday. Polcini was a country mile ahead of the pack into turn 1. He even had time to warm his tyres. That would ultimately work against him, however. Dexter Muller picking his way through the pack in the first few corners of the lap. You see there Marcin Jedlinski running wide. That wouldn't be the biggest drama of the day for Jedlinski, however. This was probably it. Turn 10, a big spin at a very unusual place for Jedlinski. And that would then continue on. A safety car would be deployed, owing to Jedlinski's car leaking oil massively, and a second safety car as Rima Jafali's Thieber Motorsport car was sent into the barriers. Back to green flag conditions then, and Janine Schoffner would soon find herself under threat from the overall lead. Jesse Krohn and Joe Osborne coming to blows, and the winner of the race was Alain Valente and Florian Scholze. As we mentioned, Valente took the flag yesterday. He'll take the start today, and they'll be looking to further their successes in the Pro-Am and indeed the overall rankings. What did yesterday do to the points then? Well, it put 3 cars within 5 points, as you can see. Ben Jahites and Polcini still leading the points, but Osborne and Moss and Van Berlo and Giardoni right up there too. So then, this is the grid for race number 2 of the weekend, the 8th race of the International GTOpen season. It's Fuminelli and Osborne, a formidable front row of the grid to take the start of this one. Yannick Mettler in P3, and he is joined by Carol Bash. Row 3 of the grid, Alain Valente and Christian Korzanowski. Row 4, Glenn van Berlo and Ben Jahites, an all-Oregon affair. They'll be looking to work their way into the top 5 in the early going. Fran Rueda in a 9th place, and Jesse Krohn debuting the BMW M4 GT3 with Racing Trevor. Sebastian Poe and Martin Conrad in 11th and 12th place. 13th and 14th, Roman Zamian and Valentin Pierberg returning to the championship there, Pierberg as well. Giuseppe Cipriani in 15th place alongside Janine Schoffner. 17th and 18th on the grid, Julian Darras in the street art Aston Martin, and the Thai sensation Kiki Saknana in 18th place. Stephen Earl, the Doc, in 19th, and Janos Santa and his mighty Aston Martin V12 Vantage. Family affair for the Shanta family this weekend. And we now will listen to David Fumanelli.
It's great. I mean, we did a triple position out of 4, so this shows how the team is working. The car is fantastic, always in quali and even in the race. So I think we're doing a fantastic job. It was very important on this track to start in front because it's a very twisty and narrow track. So hopefully we can get a clear start and get a gap. But I'm very happy.
And yesterday was a little bit more hectic.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday, because of the safety car, there was a very messy pit stop and pit exit. I think there was an incomprehension between some rules, but at the end we got a penalty, so nothing we could do, but we tried to get the podium again today.
Another day today, so let's see what happens.
Exactly, exactly.
Thank you, well done by now.
A confident-sounding man, that David Fumanelli, and he has good reason to be confident based on the pace we've seen out of him so far this weekend. It's going to be Fumanelli versus Osborne into that first corner, George. It's going to be very exciting times.
Very exciting, both of them very, very fast, pacey drivers. Fumanelli, we saw his first pole position back in Estoril all the way back then. Since then, he has now scooped up another, and we'll have to wait and see whether Joe Osborne can attack him into that turn 1 as well. Looking forward to seeing how they respond here at Hungary, but watch out as well for Karel Bash. And what about Yannick Mettler, who I have to say managed to park his car up at the top end. They were P1 for quite a considerable amount of time, so don't count them out either.
And yeah, Yannick Mettler with his best and most impressive qualifying performance of the year coming into this race. 4 manufacturers with 4 different cars and very different characteristics at the sharp end of the order on the front 2 rows of the grid. It's going to be a barnstormer of a 60-minute race here. And we are about to get underway. There's the Kessel Racing 133 car of David Fumanelli. He's going to wait for the lights to go out. Joe Osborne is looking to try and anticipate them too. The lights are out now. The pack fans out immediately, and it is Fumanelli in the lead. And I think it's a bit of a jump there from Yannick Mettler, trying to get at the inside of Joe Osborne. He's got the inside line. Has he got the corner? No, because Karel Bash is trying to go all the way around the outside. Surely he can't make that work. No, a step too ambitious. And Joe Osborne has stuck around the outside of Yannick Mettler to hold on to second place for the time being. Fumanelli leads as they go into turn 2 for the first time. Alan Valente runs it wide, as does Fran Ueda. 3 Mercedes running wide as well, because Sebastian Bold had a bit of a moment there as well in the background. Lots of cars going left, right and centre at the moment, but thankfully nobody having any particular issues here. Of course, for these Pro-Am drivers, the likes of Fumanelli, Yannick Mettler, Karel Bash, it's a golden opportunity because one of the leading teams in the championship, Viva Motorsport, unfortunately not able to take the start here today at the Hungaroring after damage from that crash we saw in the highlights package a few moments ago. Could be a great day then for Karel Bash, but he's going to have to hope the new engine that's been installed into the car lasts underneath him, and he's also going to have to be just a little bit careful perhaps in racing scenarios. Actually looking at that, maybe he's not being careful after all.
No, not at all, but getting away very, very well indeed. It was Osborne who looked like he got swallowed up heading in towards turn 1, but managed to rescue it. Yannick Mettler tried to attack him down the inside. We've now got some battling happening yet again, this time Mettler and once again Karel Bash getting in very, very close. The 777 car, lucky number, certainly as far as Karel Bash is concerned, heading through this inside. I'm sure his engine would disagree, certainly from what we saw in the previous race, but certainly now heading through the final bend at turn 14 to commence the commence the second lap in this race. It certainly has been a confident start as far as Fumanelli's concerned. Just over 0.6 of a second now is what separates him and Joe Osborne. The 2 Oregon cars both making places, up a place apiece, moving up now, but it might be in jeopardy. Moves being made around the outside. Looked like the Olymp car was going to make a move as well. Karel Bash had a little nose around the outside of Yannick Mettler, as well as further back as well. Hesse Krohn fancy to go at Ben Jahites as well, so it's all a bit of a jostle, certainly as they're all congested together. Opportunities in abundance. Let's wait and see who comes out on top.
Jesse Krohn there in 7th place already, so he's worked his way up from 10th place. Both of the Oregon Lamborghinis have profited on that first lap as well. Van Berlo already up into the top 5. But he won't see that as a positive, because I think he'll feel he should have been further up the grid to begin with. We see there the mighty BMW M4 GT3, sorry, in its debut weekend here in International GTOpen. And that car looking potent in the hands of the Racing Trevor combination. Karel Bash, though, all over the back of Yannick Mettler at the moment. We were riding on board there with Karel Bash, who is such a bright young talent, the young Polish driver who surely has a future as one of the premier drivers in GT3 competition. He's been a spectacular force this season thus far. Fran Rueda and Alan Valente side by side as they run into turn 12, and Valente holding on to that position for now. That is for 8th place currently, a 3-way, maybe make that 4-way scrap among the Mercedes. Martin Conrad there also involved in that little battle. Very tight racing here at the sharp end, or in the mid-pack, I should say.
You're absolutely right as well. Fran Rueda there getting right into the thick of it. Further back, as you alluded to, Martin Conrad trying to have a nose on Sebastian Boe as they come down through towards turn 1. Yet again, getting very close as well is Ben Chiquites as well. Let's not count him out yet either, as we're now watching the cars now come through turn 1. Street Arts Aston Martin. Oh, in comes now. That is Ben Chiquites.
No, yeah, sorry, yes, the Polchini Hites car into pit lane. We just spotted that through our window here in the commentary box. What has happened to Benja Hites? We didn't see anything too obviously wrong with the car in the opening salvo of this race, but into the pits has come Hites, and that could be a huge drama in the race. It's down to one Oregon Lamborghini then in the top 5, and it is Glenn Van Berlo there in the 5th position, being hounded by Jesse Krohn at this stage. There's Yannick Mettler though in P3. Fumanelli still comfortably in the lead by 1.2 seconds over Joe Osborne. There's then a 2.7 gap back to this battle for 3rd position as Yannick Mettler tries to hold off Karel Bash.
Certainly does. Karel Bash is going to prove a very worthy contender. Just over 3 tenths in fact behind. He's going to keep on trying, that's for sure. Joe Osborne, purple in the sector, in the 2nd sector as things stand on David Fuminelli. That gap has sprung out to 1.2. So certainly Fuminelli is certainly trying to push onwards and upwards to give his teammates a good cushion heading through the latter part of the race when the driver changes do occur in just over 18 minutes time. So we're watching Jesse Krohn now make his way through the final corner, and you can also see now the SPS Mercedes still with Karel Bash applying the target to him, heading through towards turn 1. The Olymp Racing 777 car making its way down through towards turn 1. Action in behind as well, as we're seeing Jesse Krohn and Glenn Van Berlo come together. Glenn Van Berlo defending to the inside, but the speed out of turn 1 will surely be favourable to Jesse Krohn heading through towards turn 2, but can Van Berlo just levy the pace a little bit, just keep him at bay? He certainly can. He will hold on to that 5th spot.
Seeing some spots of moisture on that camera at turn 2. There were just a few little flicks of moisture. I don't know whether that's any sign of things to come, but Jesse Krohn all over the back of Glenn Van Berlo right now, hopping over the curve at turn 4. Krohn for Racing Trevor. Jesse is a factory BMW driver. He knows his way around the M4 GT3 probably better than most people walking the face of the earth at this point. He's certainly done many a mile, many a kilometre in those cars. And, well, Racing Trevor, the Slovak team, having a good outing here in International GTOpen this weekend. Trying to get into the top 5 right now. It's going to be easier said than done, though, to get around Glenn Van Berlo. Worth noting as well that the sister Oregon team Lamborghini is back out and circulating. Benja Hites did exit the track. He's still on the lead lap, albeit almost 1 minute and 20 off the race lead. So whatever caused him to come back in, it can only have been a minor issue, but it's been a very costly one.
Yeah, it has been enough to bring him into the pit lane to have it looked at and checked, and obviously amended as well, as we're now watching that BMW make its way around the final corner and down the long straight. Jesse Krohn trying to gain now Glenn Van Berlo as they head down through towards turn 1. Van Berlo now has got to watch out, because Jesse Krohn right in the mirrors again, just having a look, being all the more threatening to to that of the Oregon Lamborghini as they come through. A little tail happy perhaps there, Van Berlo coming through turn one. Looked like it just got away from him there slightly. SA Krone managing to bring the gap and the delta right back in once again. Still their nose to tail through turn two, as they now work their way through turn three as well before they make the ascent up towards turn four. The very fast-paced left-hander. As we now take a look back inside the cockpit of SA Krone coming in towards turn four. Now just have a look how physical this particular bend is. You can just see him there just working the wheel, working the steering as he heads through towards turn five as well. And still currently marshalling the gap, marshalling the pace, staying true to Glenn Van Berlo's rear.
There you see Carol Bash bouncing over the curves. Glenn Van Berlo just glancing the grass as they came out of turn seven. And Yannick Mettler running it a bit wide there. Looked like he got caught on the curb almost. Car just kind of slid away from him, coming onto the power out of T9. Very wide at turn 11 from Mettler. Carol Bash goes even wider as to not be outdone in this battle for third place right now. And again, just seeing the odd flicker of moisture on the lenses. Haven't seen any wipers on, so if there is any moisture in the air, it's not significant enough to cause them too much issue right now. I'm sure people will be keeping abreast of the situation in case anything happens.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, we haven't got the driver change now for another 15 minutes, so we've still got plenty of time. The clouds have certainly come out slightly. The wind is blowing here at Hungary, which makes certainly ventures into turn one, where you've got 90-degree corners, can certainly cause a little issue. Just see another tail-happy Glenn Van Berlo making his way through that next straight. And obviously, considering the speeds, when you factor in the use of wind as well, that can obviously cause perhaps a few upsets in terms of the way the car travels at certain occasions, certainly through certain corners, that's for sure. Heading through turn two now. Still very much Carol Bash chasing after Yannick Mettler, but we've also got this battle between Glenn Van Berlo and SA Krone that has been keeping us entertained as well. Heading up down towards turn four. Carol Bash still trying to stay in tow, about half a second in between him and the man in P3 of Yannick Mettler, the SPS Performance Mercedes that certainly did impress in qualifying. Glenn Van Berlo again just trying to defend against the approach from SA Krone in that M4 BMW as they now make their way through the chicane at now turn 6 and 7. Very much in tandem, all the same. Wonderful to watch.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant stuff as SA Krone continues to fight away at the wheel of the M4 GT3, continues to try and find a way past the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo out of the Oregon Racing Team stable. Two very different cars, very evenly matched right now. That's the beauty of GT3 competition, particularly here in International GTOpen. So we have bespoke BOP. It's the fastest GT3 series you will find anywhere. It was a new GT3 lap record earlier today for David Fuminelli, running around this circuit in qualifying. And these cars always prove to be very impressive and entertaining. Carol Bash continues to watch the rear end of Yannick Mettler. Probably not entertaining viewing for the young Pole. He's trying to find a way past Mettler at this stage. And they run now down towards turn 2 of the lap. Carol Bash pressuring Mettler. Now with just over 11 minutes in the books of this race, I'm sure Krone is eager to try and work his way up to hand the car over to Denis Vashek in as good of a position as possible. Vashek, a very handy driver in his own right, but yes, Krone will be feeling the pressure. He's a pro driver, he knows what his job is here, and that's to optimise their chances of being up there in the order at the end. Yeah,
and as you can see from the graphic, he's up 4 places already, so very, very good effort here from SA Krone. So will certainly give his teammate a lot to look forward to when he steps into the car. But I'll tell you one man who's not looking forward to seeing SA Krone, and that's Glenn Van Berlo. Just look at this, literally pushing him around the track at Sector 2. That M4 BMW really providing a bit of a headache to that of the driver of the Lamborghini Huracan GT3, heading through this next right now at turn 11. Turn 12 next. Oh, just going well out wide, heading through that sector. The pace there on these cars, unbelievable, as they now head down through towards turn 12. And still Van Berlo trying to marshal the gap, getting so tight, so close. Very nearly a fist bump heading through that point of the circuit, now through turn 13. And as they make their way through towards turn 14, you get the feeling an opportunity might lay in wait for SA Krone. It might just, you know, running onto the main straight now then. For
for the 7th time. On to lap 8 of the race now, and Jesse Kroon waits in the wings of Glenn van Berlo, maybe waits on the wing of Glenn van Berlo. Ben Jahites still out there on circuit, incidentally, in the 63 car, and setting fairly good laps, but unfortunately with that early unscheduled pit stop, his race is looking rather worse for wear. There is the 133 car, there is David Fumanelli. Clips the curb at turn 4 and has built a nice advantage over Joe Osborne, 2.6 seconds as of the first sector delta here at Hungary. And Osborne putting in a good shift. He will be eager to hand the car over to Nick Moss. Nick Moss, who is a bronze-rated driver, but has moved himself up to pro for the 2022 season, seemingly just for the sake of a challenge. That's the kind of mentality we like to see in motor racing. And from that position, one would suspect that Osborne could be, along with Nick Moss, in with a good chance of a victory, because of course Moss is very, very quick indeed, and could well be in a hot shoe to take the lead after the stops.
Celebrated in style back in Paul Ricard, where Optimum Motorsport came out on top on not just one, but 2 occasions. And of course, Nick Moss was delighted, certainly with that, as was Joe Osborne. The celebrations in Parc Ferme certainly did tell their story, that's for sure. David Fumanelli, though, the man on top right now, as he now crosses the start-finish line to commence yet another lap, here with 46 minutes on the dot to go. And in behind, you can see Joe Osborne right in the mirror. Speak of the devil, in 2nd place, as he now makes his way down through towards turn 1. Yannick Mettler currently sits in 3rd as well. The SPS Mercedes now makes its way through turn 1. Karel Bash not as close as he was before, but I tell you, one battler has not separated at whatsoever. It's Glenn van Berlo and Jesse Kroon. Look at that, just literally nip and tuck. It's been like that since the very first lap, Adam.
It really has, yes. Kroon managed to work his way up from 10th on the grid to 7th place very early on. That marked him directly behind both of the Oregon team Lamborghinis, but Van Berlo now on his own. He hasn't got Ben Jahites for backup out there as he goes, I think, a little bit defensive there on the run towards turn 4 at one point. Just going through his screen there was the number 5 Ferrari. That's the AM class leading car of Christian Korzanowski. Team manager for car number 8 to report to race control immediately. That's Giuseppe Cipriani's team manager to race control. So being summoned there. Alan Valente still behind Korzanowski right now as they run through turn 9 and 10. And just looking back forward again to the Racing Trevor BMW, but Valente, I don't think he'll be terribly happy to be stuck there behind an AM class car after tasting overall and Pro-Am victory last time out here yesterday.
No, not at all. And we just got word of a correction warning for Karel Bash, who's currently chasing after Yannick Mettler. Track limits at turn 11, that is what they're checking out. So obviously Karel Bash trying to do his best to get ahead there of Yannick Mettler. Interesting scrap between these two. In fact, Mettler's done a great job because he's marshaled the gap out to nearly his 2nd. And that is quite a substantial amount if you consider the fact that slipstream is still very useful in GT3 racing, almost a necessity to make overtakes in certain areas, as now we're seeing a lot of the cars that make their way through. Certainly a man that's going to be looking to push on is Alan Valente, no doubt full of confidence in that team after the superb win yesterday that they managed to get in race 1, and a maiden win as well this season. Oh, there's an off.
Roman Zamian
off.
And straight into the pits by the looks of it. Let's see what happened here. He had Valentin Pierberg behind him, alongside him, and into him. Zamian sent into a spin, unfortunately. And hopefully the car isn't too damaged. I wasn't sure whether he was just trying to do a U-turn or come into the pits. It is into the pits. And maybe out of frustration as much as anything, Zamian is running down the pit lane.
And that's 2 very early stops, because of course Ben Jahites came in, he was one of the first. And now we're seeing Roman Zamian in fact, he's going straight through the pit lane.
Straight through.
Almost a drive-through.
Almost a drive-through. I think what happened there was the turning circle wasn't enough for him to actually get the car back around.
So he had no choice.
And he was either light up the rear tyres to do a rather spectacular rejoin, or do the safe thing and just climb across the curves into the pit lane. He went for the safe thing. That's going to cost both he and Axel Jeffries, his co-driver, a lot of time. Another Pro-Am, well, a Pro-Am car now falling by the wayside. We've already had one of the Pro cars, the Oregon Team 63 Lamborghini, have issues in this race. It's been compelling to this point, hasn't it? There's been lots of drama and lots of scrapping. Christian Korzanowski attracting a lot of attention from Alain Valente. Getting a replay here of Joe Osborne having a bit of a shaky moment there coming out of T7. That car has looked a bit of a handful under throttle application at times this weekend, and that can sometimes be a characteristic of a turbocharged car such as the McLaren, such as the Ferrari. Perhaps that's what's going on there. There you see Korzanowski under pressure from Alain Valente. Fran Rueda keeping a watching brief as well in that 93 car. And this is a scrap for 7th overall. Korzanowski will be handing over to Stanislav Jedlinski, of course, and Jedlinski will be at a very high point on the circuit, a very high point in the order when he takes that car over.
He will be very high up the order as well. Big opportunity certainly for Jedlinski to really push onwards and upwards. Benji Hitez has moved up to 19th. Interesting.
Stephen Earle with a puncture. Stephen Earle. And this must have happened on the main straight, because this is coming into turn 1, of course. And Stephen Earle has had a tyre let go. And if that has indeed happened on the pit straight, that is hugely inopportune. He almost looked like he was coming out of the pit lane with the puncture, but that surely can't have been the case. Unfortunately for Stephen Earle then, he is in the wars as well. It's feeling something of a race of attrition, this. Christian Korzanowski with a little bit of a moment there. Alain Valente sees the opportunity, tries to go around the outside. That's not going to work. On the timing screen, incident involving cars 7, 8, 6 and 11. That's Kiki Saknana and Stephen Earle under investigation, so that might explain the puncture. Here comes Alain Valente, though, all over the back of Korzanowski. Korzanowski under pressure here as they run down the main straight towards turn 1. 2 black and yellow cars of very different varieties, although the Olive car is really a very dark purple and goes to the inside there. Position retained for now, but Alain Valente is making him work for it every inch of the way.
Yeah, and it's bringing Fran Rueda into the fight as well as they make their way in towards turn 2. You can just see there another twinkle of the lights there from Alain Valente, just letting him know that he's there. And here comes the replay. Now, this is the incident involving Stephen Earle and Kiki Saknana. Switching to the inside. Oh, rubbing shoulders, heading into the next lap. Interestingly enough, must have been caught. The bend of turn 13, perhaps. Well, that surprises me. Maybe he didn't know he had the puncture until after the pit lane.
Well, it certainly didn't look like a punctured tyre at the point of that replay cutting away, so maybe just a gash to the side of the Michelin sidewall has triggered that puncture a few moments later, and maybe there was something subsequently at T14. It certainly looked like that was the incident we're meant to be looking at 13, and there is Stephen Earle's car limping back into the garage, and that's going to be not a, maybe they'll be back out there surely, but certainly the end of a competitive outing in AM for Stephen Earle, unfortunately, this weekend. The AM class leader's just blown past him to put him a lap down. That's Christian Korzanowski, who we see here. Alain Valente getting ever feistier behind him in the Team GT number 33 car. You've got Fran Rueda for Vapouro Motorsport. Vapouro making their return for the first time since Friday at Estoril, where their car was in the barriers. And Fran Rueda making his first appearance in the International GTOpen since the mid-stages of 2020. Christian Korzanowski holding on for now. Valente looking for a way by, nothing doing as of yet. Valente remains a frustrated 8th place.
Yeah, he still keeps on hammering it home, trying to make, well, certainly make the assault here on Christian Korzanowski, who's holding on to that 7th spot. 2/10 now is all that separates. They now come in towards turn 2. Just see there, Valente very wary of Fran Rueda in behind as well, because if the door opens up, huge opportunity for Rueda, should he be allowed through. As we're now seeing Korzanowski run off wide, heading out of turn 3, and they make the climb up towards turn 4. Advantage now to Valente as they take turn 4 now, still side by side, 3 wide near enough, as Rueda comes in to join the fight, as he senses an opportunity. Rueda goes ahead now of Alain Valente. Rueda now up ahead now of Valente, now up into P7, I believe, on track, as then they come through the next chicane. Oh, tail happy, heading through turn 6 and 7, and still in front of this 4-car contingent. It is Korzanowski. Rueda now up into 9th. Bo in 10th as well. We've got Valente, who's actually moved down the order. Bit of a mix-up here as we begin to update certainly the classifications, folks. But coming through, Rueda in front of these 4 cars.
Rueda in 7th place, getting past Korzanowski there. Alan Valente just a nose ahead for 8th place now. So he's ended up retaining 8th position after all of that, because Fran Rueda got past him. He's now got past Korzanowski, but there was a lot going on all at once there. Sebastian Bold was trying to get his way up the order. He's now around the outside of Korzanowski. Korzanowski will be demoted here to 10th place. Well, he started the lap in 7th, he ends the lap in 10th. Sunrise, sunset, I suppose.
Absolutely right. What a battle indeed. And certainly something we've come to enjoy here at the GTOpen. Sebastian Boe now in front of Christian Korzanowski, coming down the home straight in towards turn 1. He'd be delighted with that, to say the least. And Fran Rueda also revelling in the fact that he managed to secure that P7 position as well, with Alan Valente in behind him too. As we now take a look on our screens, as we now rejoin the action further up, because Glenn Van Berlo still has Hesse Krohn all over his rear right now, chasing the Team Oregon car as they now head through turn 4.
Car 20, that is Valentin Pierberg in the SPS Automotive Performance Mercedes. His return to the championship this weekend, a former Pro-Am champion back in 2018. He has a 10-second time penalty to be added to his race time for causing a collision. Of course, that was the moment between himself and Roman Zamian. Here's a look back at the spectacular battle for P7. Rueda tagged Korzanowski there into a slide and triggered an almighty sequence of racing. Rueda got himself up into 7th place. We took another look at it. I wonder if the stewards are too. We'll have to wait and see. The change is on. The pit window is open as we've crossed the 36-minute to go threshold. Into the pit lane is Stephen Earle. So after getting a new tyre on the car, he's immediately going to throw it over to Erwin Zanotti. And there is the Benjahites car being handed over to Leonardo Polcini. But in less than stellar circumstances, pitting out of 18th place in the race. Polcini, who is a very fiery driver and a very fiery character, is going to have to do a lot of work to salvage anything even remotely resembling a decent result.
Yeah, there's going to be some entertainment, certainly as far as Leonardo Polcini is concerned, though he would have preferred to be up in the order and certainly fighting for the top end of things. That's going to be very difficult given where he is right now. There's Glenn Van Berlo, who still has for company Hesse Krohn, currently sat in 5th. Trying to challenge now is Hesse Krohn for that 5th place spot as they now come through turn 4. Carol Bash, we just saw in pictures, still on Yannick Nettler. He's managed to bring that gap in slightly, and in comes the Axiom Space Mercedes as well, and they're going to be utilising their changeover. Moritz Kranz and Janine Schaffner making the change. Moritz Kranz will jump in the seat and then take it for the second stint. Another Mercedes in the pits as well. Dominic Baumann taking a seat in that one too. Valentin Pierberg after his stint, he's going to jump out. All the changes now underway.
Car 93, that's Fran Rueda's 93 Peporo Motorsport Mercedes, reprimands the driver for driving standards. So it sounds like they're going to tell off Fran and not the team or indeed the car as a collective. For the little collision there with Christian Korzanowski. In comes Roman Zamian to hand over to Axel Jeffries. Jeffries, another driver who is going to have to put in one mighty shift to get anything out of this race. You see Janine Schaffner, who was also in the pit lane. Moritz Kranz was already going out of the pits as Axel Jeffries' car was delivered to him in the pits. That is a very bad sign indeed. The 2 cars coming back out there onto the circuit. The Pro-Am Mercedes have ended up between the race leader and 2nd place, albeit a lap down. So Moritz Kranz and Dominic Baumann between Fuminelli and Osborne on the road at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely right. Here's Dario Fuminelli, currently sat in P1 on our classification. You can imagine that he's going to go throughout the entire changeover timer and through towards the end. The final minutes is when you can expect him to come in and then hand over the car. Joe Osborne likely to do the same as well in 2nd place. And car number 8, we've got a 3-second time penalty. And that goes to Giuseppe Cipriani for repeatedly cutting turn 6. That's the chicane, which you're now watching Fuminelli coming through right now. Obviously, we saw that happen earlier on when we had that massive 4-car scrap earlier on as well.
Yes, there's been a little bit of chicane abuse down at 6 and 7 so far this weekend. Cipriani into pit lane then, and a 3-second time penalty hanging over his head for the end of the race. Here's Jesse Krohn still working to try and get past Glenn Van Berlo. That was one of the best opportunities he had so far. He couldn't quite find a BMW's width though. Glenn Van Berlo very careful to place the car where Jesse Krohn didn't want it. Textbook defending from Glenn Van Berlo then as he continues to hold 5th position here. He wants to hand the car over to Kevin Giardoni in as strong of a position as humanly possible. Dennis Vashek will be hoping that Jesse Krohn does the same for him as well in the Pro-Am entry. A reminder that up at the sharp end of the order, it is majority Pro-Am cars at the moment. However, Joe Osborne's McLaren, the Optimum Motorsport 720S, and that Oregon Team Lamborghini are both pro cars. That means that as a rule, they're more consistent across the race, of course, with 2 drivers of similar professional caliber at the wheel. Jesse Krohn had a look to the inside there at turn 1. Didn't quite find a way through yet, though. That BMW certainly does look racy. I don't think Jesse's had it in clean air under green flag conditions in either of the races at any point so far this weekend. I wonder what he could do if he ever got that opportunity.
You have to wonder whether there's a build-up of frustration that Van Berlo isn't opening that door for him right now, but he's not going to allow it. He's certainly not going to allow him at all as they rush through the next left at turn 4. They've got turn 5 coming up next, and Van Berlo just hugging the inside, trying to defend any assault here from that of Jesse Krohn. Is now power out through towards turn 6 and 7 at the chicane. Once again, Karel Bash in the distance. We can see from Jesse Krohn's windscreen making his way through as well. He's trying to chase after Yannick Mettler at this moment. 1.6 now between Bash and Mettler as things stand. Van Berlo now round in this next right. Still currently in tow now. Jesse Krohn looking for every opportunity. Now, he was very close coming out of this particular bend earlier on. A little twitch there from Van Berlo as well as he makes his way through. Turn 12 is up next. You have to wonder whether even before the pit stop phase, as Van Berlo maybe just misses the apex there slightly, that Jesse Krohn might want to throw everything into it before the changeover happens for him.
Could well do. Krohn continues on, as does Van Berlo ahead of him. So these two look like they want the full driving time they can get before the pit window shuts, with 24 minutes of the race left to run. So another 6 minutes for them to do. In layman's terms, another 3 laps at max until they run the risk, or rather simply do break the maximum driver sim time in this race. And for now, Van Berlo sits there in that 5th position. Into the pits on this lap has come Steve Jans in the 911 car, or rather, Steve Jans will take over from Sebastian Bold. Meanwhile, Stanislav Jedlinski there in the back of shot, receiving the number 5 car from Christian Korzynowski. Love it when the seat inserts go flying during the pit stops. Always got to make sure you're up if you're in the garages during the stop. Jesse Krohn in that 6th position at the moment, and just looking so racy. I think almost four-wheel drifting the car around turn 5 there. And Krohn must be, as you said, bitterly frustrated, but still, in what is a development year for the BMW M4 GT3, in a sense, it was only delivered to customers for the first time at the start of this racing season. It seems to have gotten better in all of the championships where it races regularly across the year to this point. And certainly, I think every time Jesse Krohn gets behind the wheel, he's learning more about the car, helping BMW make it an even better race car for the 2023 season. We watch then as Moritz Kranz and Dominic Baumann have a bit of an inter-Mercedes scrap.
Yeah, absolutely right. Coming down the long straight now. And as they do so, Moritz Kranz is going to be very wary of what's going on behind him, as now we're seeing Baumann make his way down the home straight. In behind as well, Cipriani. And as they make their way down through towards turn 1. It's 28 minutes and 20 seconds still remain as they round turn 1. Further up, Julian Darris, currently sat in that 10th place, as now the order starts to sort itself out. We've got outlaps as well for Steve Jans, who we can just see in picture, as well as Animo Seika now moving ahead too, with Jedlinski as well marshalling through in 16th spot. And for the back there, you can see now the picture of the BMW as it makes its way through. That, of course, belonging to that of Hesse Krohn. In comes the Team GT, Alan Valente for his stop. Incoming now Florian Scholzer. No doubt still after the success of the weekend so far, they can be pleased that they are still very much in the mix of things right now. Currently 10th place as per the way things currently stand, with the Aston Martin now coming in, the V12 having a change as well. And all the crowds and spectators watching on in the stand above the pit lane certainly get to enjoy this Aston Martin coming in.
Yeah, they love Janos as well. Janos Shanta is a bit of a racing hero in Hungary. Has some really mighty GT cars in the stable. His son is also racing this weekend in a local championship on the support bill for GTOpen this week. So lots of interest in the Shanta family from the Hungarian faithful here at the Hungaroring, just outside of Budapest. We have 27 minutes of this race to go. Axel Jeffries down in 17th place has just set the fastest lap of the race at 1:43.102, so he's going to be pressing on. He's got a long way to go though before he gets to any serious positions, however, and we'll see how he progresses across the rest of the race. With 2 minutes and 48 seconds to go before the pit window shuts, this will be the final lap before David Fuminelli comes in. He cannot do 2 more laps without exceeding the driver time. Jesse Krohn is in. Yannick Mettler is also in to hand over to Dexter Muller. Dennis Vacek will receive this BMW M4 from Jesse Krohn.
Yeah, in come more stops now, and as you alluded to, Dennis Vacek now coming in for Jesse Krohn, and they'll serve their handicap. Dexter Muller will now jump in the car in place of Yannick Mettler. So I'm sure this fight will then go off as well. As you alluded to, Joe Osborne and David Fuminelli will be looking to come in on this lap too. Still remaining out on track. We've only got 2 minutes left in amidst the driver change. Street Art have got their Aston Martin through. Just saw it coming through the pit lane as well. And they're going to be making their stop. Pascal Bachmann and Julian Darris swapping out for the 007 Aston Martin. And waiting attentively to jump in the car now. And indeed, they will make the swaps. So there we have it, folks. All the changes happening now with just over a minute and a half to go. And there is David Fuminelli, who I'm sure will be looking to plumb for a pit now, as well as Joe Osborne, who is currently sat in 2nd place. But currently, as it stands, it's Fuminelli and Kessel Racing's Ferrari up on top.
Yep, so the top 4 cars, top 5 cars, I should say, as well, with Martin Conrad currently 5th, as he has not pitted. Will all have to come in this time, lest they miss out on the driver change window. We saw there Fuminelli angling towards the pit lane. Dennis Vacek there, just going back out onto the circuit in the BMW. Here is the Ferrari, though, into the pit lane for Kessel Racing. Murat Chadaroglu will take over the car. The 65-second handicap for them. That's the base pit stop time, so they haven't got any handicap seconds to consider. And as you see there, Nick Moss and Joe Osborne have 15 seconds, a total of 80 seconds for their pit stop. So Chadaroglu will get out of there a bit quicker than some of the cars around him, which may work in his favour. The gull-wing doors go up as the McLaren's pit stop continues. And Nick Moss will take the wheel of that one. Marcin Jedlinski will be taking over from Karel Bash. And Martin Conrad is also in to hand over to Alexander Krakowina. The first of the drivers that has made a pit stop is this man, one Dexter Muller. And he is currently there 6th overall. I imagine that some of these cars are going to come out ahead of Dexter, but Dexter will be looking to try and make a good result here in the Pro-Am class. Looks like he's just settling himself into the car right now, not quite using all of the track at this stage. Heads out onto the circuit then, and we'll see where he is relative to some of the others. There is the 133 car of Murat Chadaroglu. He's out first. He inherits the lead of the race and comes out just ahead of Erwin Zanotti, a lap down in that number 11 car of Stephen Earle and Zanotti, and just getting ahead is Dexter Muller and Marcin Jedlinski. This should be for 3rd overall, and it is for 2nd in the Pro-Am class, of course. So Dexter Muller just ahead of Marcin Jedlinski for now. 2 of the Am elements of the Pro-Am class. Perhaps going to have a bit of a scrap here.
Yeah, it certainly could be, as they now round through turn 2, running quite wide there as well. Marcin Jedlinski, but doing well, just getting back on the power in towards turn 3. and then take some of the curb then on the exit, leading up towards turn 4. Side by side now out of the pit lane there. We've got the car number 20 belonging to Dominic Baumann. He's only just swapped into the car himself as well, in the midst of Moritz Kranz as well, fighting it out in that midfield. Moritz Kranz coming out on top in that exchange, rounding turn 2. So the Mercedes now ahead of the other Mercedes. In fact, it's a bit of a Mercedes affair with 3 cars all in tandem. Steve Jans, the front of those 3 right now, leading up towards turn 4. Nice moment there, heading through turn 3, Adam Weller.
Good news if you're Adam Osaka, driving the 786 Get Speed Performance Mercedes. The collision between Kiki Saknana and Stephen Earl earlier in the race. Of course, Saknana in the 786 car was now driven by Osaka. After their collision at turn 13, it was decided that no driver was predominantly at fault. So the incident that resulted in the puncture for Stephen Earl, there will be no ramifications beyond the puncture. So that battle is resigned, or that moment is resigned to the annals of history. There is the 777 car, still pressuring Marcin Jedlinski, is pressuring Dexter Muller. Dexter Muller in the 54 SPS Performance Automotive Mercedes-Benz. He's done a lap or 2 more. He may have got himself up to speed here. That was the completion of the outlap for Jedlinski. Is this the completion of a move for 3rd place overall and the Pro-Am 2nd place? Yes, it is. Jedlinski with a dive up the inside into turn 1. Nice move from Marcin.
Yeah, very good move indeed. Capitalised in the inside line, taking a lot of the curb on the inset too. Nick Moss, though, heading into this fight as well. And he's being closely joined by Denis Vacek as well in behind too. So the BMW back again for more. As now we look at the replay of the move between Marcin Jedlinski and Dexter Muller. Down the inside at turn 1, went the Olymp racing Audi. New engine now, it's in a very, very good position, and now Nick Moss challenges Dexter Muller heading around turn 5 and gets ahead as well, so he moves through as well up into 4th place. In comes as well Denis Vacek, looking to come in and join the fight as well, but great move for Nick Moss, and now he can focus ahead and then perhaps challenge Marcin Jedlinski himself.
Yeah, Vacek all over the back of Dexter Muller at this point for 5th place. And that is also 3rd among the Pro-Am teams. Vacek would be super keen to be on the Pro-Am podium once again. The driver who's been very successful in Central European GT competition. We'd love to see him and this big BMW in the International GT Open more often. Clearly, both he, car and team all up to the competitive nature of the International GT Open Championship. There is the move from Nick Moss to move up to 4th overall. He is going to have to hunt down Kevin Giardoni, of course, if he wants to try and claim the overall win. That would be a mighty showing from the bronze-rated driver who elected to go into Pro this year, if he can do so. Looks like Dexter Muller may be under threat here. He is under threat. Denis Vacek jets past in the BMW M4 GT3. Must have got a great run out of turn 14. Vacek through into P5.
Yeah, great move again from Vacek. That BMW again very imposing. Managed to get himself through at turn 1 and now in towards turn 2. Nick Moss, though, has gained a lot on Marcin Jedlinski for that 3rd place, and that McLaren is also looking extremely threatening now. 4/10 is all that separates the pair, and he might spy an opportunity as well heading in towards the latter stages of sector 2 and towards sector 3. And Vacek now confirmed ahead of Muller, as you can see on the timing screen onto your left-hand side there. You can see now Jedlinski in 3rd, but still 5/10 is all that separates him and Nick Moss. Very, very talented Nick Moss as well. Revelled in the winning of the 2 races at Paul Ricard. And that no doubt will give him a flood of confidence here, as now the garages watch on in bated breath as they watch these fights now continue here around this circuit of, well, here at Hungaroring, which certainly offers thrills and spills with very tight corners, lots of challenges lay in wait. And speaking to the likes of Adam Christodoulou, who unfortunately isn't with us this weekend, he was explaining to me about how choppy and how changing it can be. Obviously, you've got a corner after another, one after the other, very physical track, and therefore it's a challenge to any driver that tackles it.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Nick Moss being challenged at the moment by Marcin Jedlinski. Jedlinski there holding on to 3rd overall right now. We've had a change for the lead because Kevin Giardoni is through into the race lead. Murat Chadaroglu has been demoted to 2nd place. So Giardoni is now our race leader. Chadaroglu was always likely to struggle to hold on to the overall lead. An overall podium may just about still be possible if he can keep it clean, but we'll wait and see. Wait with bated breath on that one. There is Nick Moss, though, imposing behind Marcin Jedlinski. We've had a track limits warning for car 73. That's Axel Jeffries down in 16th place, and he's running wide at turn 11, so say the stewards. And he'll have to nip that in the bud if he wants to avoid a time penalty applied at the end of the race, which would be just another kick in what's been a very hefty race so far for the number 73 Kessel car. Of course, tagged into a spin earlier on by Valentin Pierberg, as we saw in the first half of the race. Across the curbs goes Jedlinski, then Moss and indeed Vasek getting closer.
Yeah, absolutely right. Moss is indeed, and Vasek also coming to join the fun. And that BMW M4 is very much cruising to the rear of that McLaren. 720S GT3 and making its way through the next left, now trying to gain on the Audi R8 belonging to that of Jedlinski in third as they make their way down through towards turn 12. You see there Moss just showing in the mirrors again of Jedlinski. Just giving him something to think about in this final sector very shortly. Looking to have a look down the inside. Nick Moss just sort of give him a full view of the Optimum Motorsport McLaren, as well at the same time defending perhaps from the BMW in behind. Of course, Vasek really starting to look imposing himself in that BMW as they head through the final corner and make their way down the long stretch now. Nick Moss looking to try and gain as best he can, certainly down this long straight leading towards turn one, a heavy braking zone that can offer opportunities to many. And again, coming out wide as well is Vasek, just again showing in the mirrors this time of Nick Moss as they head through turn one now. Jedlinski in towards turn two, still holds on to P3 with a reasonable margin, is defended very well from the McLaren of Nick Moss. And he's going to have double duty now with two cars in behind.
Just looking at the move that happened for the lead, and Murat Hadaroglu made a bit of an error at turn 14 just over a lap ago that eventually allowed Kevin Giardoni through into the race lead that he currently holds. Giardoni and Van Berlo would be delighted to get to the top step of the podium in this race. The Oregon Team 19 crew have rather watched the 63 have most of the fun so far this year, and Van Berlo and Giardoni would be keen to get to winning ways in the second half of this season. Giardoni at the moment comfortably at the head of the order, and 6.4 seconds clear of Hadaroglu. There's another 3 seconds back to Jedlinski in third place. Of course, as Jedlinski and Nick Moss continue to scrap, the chances of Moss being able to challenge this man Giardoni go down ever more. Must say as well, Vasek there in 5th place in the BMW. More often than not, a couple of kilometres an hour quicker in a straight line than any other car around it. That M4 GT3 has proven to be a very quick car in a straight line just about anywhere it has gone so far this year in any championship. The victories that have come so far for the M4 GT3 in its global competition debut year have come at circuits where the straight line speed is of the essence, such as the Red Bull Ring, where a double win was scored earlier this year. Vasek then still pressuring the back of Nick Moss, and Nick Moss still trying to find a way around Jedlinski. We saw some side-by-side going on a few moments ago between Zanotti and Stanislav Jedlinski. Sadly for Zanotti, they're a lap apart because Owen Zanotti is 2 laps off the lead after that puncture for Stephen Earl earlier in the race. Really a hard race for the doctor and the young Italian, but they'll be looking to come back stronger next time out. When we head to the Red Bull Ring that I mentioned earlier on, maybe we can convince the BMW crew to come and take this car to our paddock again at a circuit that will most certainly suit the BMW if they decide to take on the challenge. Murat Hadaroglu then is coming under pressure from Marcin Jedlinski. Jedlinski has guided everyone else up to the back of the Ferrari, and Hadaroglu is going to have to make that car very wide indeed. This, of course, is for the Pro-Am lead. Murat Hadaroglu is currently your Pro-Am leader, but Karol Bash, second in class, is right there with him. Hadaroglu is going to have to really put in a stellar defensive drive from this point onwards, and you can see the frustration, the lights flashing, and everyone trying to fan out from corner to corner as they continue to try and find a way past Murat.
Yeah, Murat Hungaroring now leading this 4-car contingent. This is, as you say, for the lead of the Pro-Am category and second place overall. Of course, Nick Moss representing the Pro category, as now we're seeing the Audi R8 coming through, getting very tight to the rear of the Ferrari now of Murat Hungaroring down this long stretch. Audi power now required here, certainly now for Marcin Jedlinski, heading down this straight, down through towards turn 1, defensive, a bit of weaving, a switch to the inside, and Marcin Jedlinski goes up into overall second place. Nick Moss also dives up to third, and also coming through as well, Denis Vacek. So it's a three-way swing, as now we're seeing Marcin Jedlinski now take the Pro-Am lead, with now in behind as well Nick Moss peppering him, with also Denis Vacek in behind him too.
All the more incentive now then for Vacek. This is now him trying to get to Jedlinski, of course. Nick Moss is kind of a barrier to Jedlinski at the moment for the Pro-Am lead, and of course Vacek is now staring from 4th place at the potential of an overall podium as well, at a circuit that he knows so well. He raced that car here earlier this year in a more localized competition, and so certainly has some experience of the circuit and seems to be enjoying the car. Cipriani not enjoying the grass though. Did he manage to keep it held together? Oh, just about avoided the barriers at least, which is a small mercy. But that was for the AM lead, because Alexander Rakovina got past Cipriani. So the AM lead has changed hands in favour of Alexander Rakovina. Martin Conrad will be watching that with a wry smile.
Yeah, absolutely right. And of course, the certainly this year, given this season of GTOpen, Alexander Rakovina and Martin Conrad have enjoyed plenty of success. Certainly this season, as now once again this battle up at the higher end of the order is certainly starting to come together. We've got yet another little scrap. Daniel Diaz Varela coming into the scrap as well, trying to get past as we now make our way through this next right, and as we now watch the cars make their way through. It certainly is Jedlinski still in second place, Nick Moss still in third as well, trying to gain still 3/10 in behind him, Denis Vacek in 4th as well.
Yeah, Diaz Varela just leading that queue of cars we saw there in the 93 Mercedes AMG GT3. Briefly got a look at them at turn 14, and here's Dexter Muller being overtaken there by Moritz Kranz. Kranz really had to duck to the inside there to avoid the back of Muller, and that was a move for 7th overall and 5th in the Pro-Am class. Moritz Kranz working his way up. He is the first of the pro drivers in Pro-Am right now, so he is very much the hunter among the hunted right now. I think he might struggle to get towards the overall lead of the class, or the lead of the class in the next 10.5 minutes, but he'll give it a good try, I'm sure of that much. The drivers in general have been informed, hey, remember, flashing is not allowed. We've seen quite a lot of it so far this race. Janos Shanta proving to be a cork in the bottle there, and Nick Moss has gone across the curbs and the runoff area to get past Jedlinski there. I think if I were Nick Moss, I'd get that position back to Jedlinski, because inevitably he's going to be asked to do so anyway.
Yeah, absolutely right. Now Jedlinski, unfortunately paying the price in that aspect, but hopefully he'll be able to be given the position back. We'll wait and see what the stewards determine, but Nick Moss now up into that second spot, and once again the flashing at this point. don't forget folks on the track, flashing has been determined as not allowed at this point, as we're now seeing it again. The battles unfurl as Denis Vacek once again looks to try and attack Marcin Jedlinski this time. Oh, round now the 911 Mercedes of Steve Jans has spun, and that's not ideal at all. Venturing back onto the circuit, good to see that there's no damage necessarily. Dexter Muller letting the cars go by too.
Oh, Cipriani there with an issue, and Cipriani, where is that? I wasn't sure. Turn four, he's gone off circuit there. Now the car didn't look too badly damaged to me, as up the inside for the Pro-Am lead has gone for Denis Vacek. Okay, so Nick Moss obviously in second place after that moment earlier on, cutting across the track, and now Denis Vacek is your Pro-Am leader and third overall. Double podium in the offing for Racing Trevor. We got to look at their garage. Jesse Krohn & Co. very excited by the happenings here. There's a yellow flag up at turn 4, so no overtaking here, please. And there you see Giuseppe Cipriani's car parked up there between 4 and 5. So the driver that was running second in AM, was previously the AM class leader, has made an error or been sent into a spin one way or the other. And now Vacek all over the back of Nick Moss, and it looks like he can match the pace of the McLaren driver. Vasek really showing his stuff here. Cipriani running the wrong way along the grass. You don't want to be doing that for too long. That can get you in some trouble if you're going against the traffic. Nick Moss then in second place. We should mention Kevin Giardoni out in the lead of the race. He's some 20 seconds clear of this battle for second place. All he has to do is nurse the Lamborghini home. There are no such luxuries, though, for Nick Moss, who is pressing on now with Denis Vasek close behind in the Racing Trevor BMW M4 GT3. Two very different machines in a close battle here. Cipriani now reversing down the road. Don't know whether he's just looking for an escape road or something here, but certainly the yellow flags continue to wave as Cipriani tries to work out his next move. Vasek currently in the Pro-Am lead, currently third overall. He's due 2 podiums if things were to end as they are now. But I think that racing driver instinct is going to kick in. I think he wants past Nick Moss. It's going to be hard to resist. Discretion is sometimes the better part of valor, but that's very difficult to explain to drivers at times. And there was Cipriani just rejoining the race, so he's managed to do so eventually. We'll see whether or not he carries on or whether he retires to the pit lane now, but he's a long way down the order. Courtesy of that moment, and there is the moment in question. Oh, he did tap the barriers after all. What was happening there was he was trying to close back in on Alexander Frakovina to retake the AM lead. And there was Steve Jans' moment. That's not a nice place to be side on, coming out of turn 11 there. And that was the moment where Nick Moss suddenly gained second place. The Olymp Racing 777 car there, caught out by Janos Shanta. And here we see another angle of the moment. The Aston Martin trying to stay out of the way, but there was only so much that could be done. And Nick Moss, he did rather cut across the track to gain that position, but we've not seen any notion of an investigation just yet. So Vasek continues to chase down the McLaren. Great scrap this is looking to be for second overall. Kevin Giardoni is our race leader at this stage by 20.7 seconds. I can confirm his fellow Lamborghini driver Giuseppe Cipriani has pulled back into the pits, 19th overall and seemingly going no further. There is Erwin Zinotti, who now promotes himself up to 18th overall, and I believe 4th within the AM class, courtesy of that moment for Cipriani. Side by side between Diaz Varela and Murat Chahadaroglu. This is for 4th position in the Pro-Am class, and it looks as though Daniel Diaz Varela has managed to move up another place. Good driving from the Vapouro Motorsport competitor. He's moved himself up into 4th in Pro-Am. I think any further progress might be tricky. But a podium may not be out of the question. We'll see what Diaz Varela can do from here. Chahadaroglu now under pressure from Dominic Baumann. Of course, Baumann is the pro element of that Pro-Am car lineup, so Baumann may face a little bit of... may not face too much pressure here, because Baumann, of course, being a pro driver, you'd expect him to be able to pick off Chahadaroglu and perhaps Diaz Varela as well. So keep an eye on the 20 SPS car, because that could move up through the order. There is Sebastian Boll putting a lap on the 27 Aston Martin, the V12 Vantage GT3 of Janos Shanta. That mighty V12 screen. Car 72 and 16 under investigation for overtaking 777 off the track at turns 6 and 7. So 777 car and the 16, that's the two you're looking at, both under investigation now. So that could be critical. If they both receive penalties, then and suddenly Jedlinski could regain his second overall, but he also has to worry, Jedlinski, about the car behind him. It's Moritz Kranz in the number 9 Get Speed Mercedes. He's snuck his way up to 5th overall at this stage and 3rd in Pro-Am, but he may be able to capitalise and gain himself and Janine Schaffner an overall podium, especially if a penalty is applied to the two cars you look at here. Nick Moss, Denis Vacek, both under investigation for overtaking a car off track. That was at turn 6 and 7 where you saw the Aston Martin trip up Marcin Jedlinski. These two cars went straight on. Just taking a look there at Giuseppe Cipriani, and he has decided to call it a day after a difficult day of racing. He was trying to chase down Frakovina for the AM class leads. Unfortunately, he ended up in the wall. This battle for second place continues on then, and it is Nick Moss who is just about holding off Denis Vacek right now. Get the feeling that Moss is driving out of his skin. Adam Osaka has just been overtaken by Leonardo Polcini. So that's a move. Unfortunately for Polcini, that's only a move for 14th place. Of course, Hites pitting in at the end of the first lap. We're not quite sure what happened to Polcini and Hites. You can see some damage on the rear of the car there. Don't know whether that's connected to the first lap issues or not, but Polcini, Hites, they pitted on lap 1 with Benja Hites at the wheel. Polcini has now worked his way up to 14th overall. It's still going to be a bad day for the team that is, of course, our championship leaders. As it stands, Giardoni and Van Berlo, I believe, would inherit the lead. Car 72 has received a 3-second penalty to be added to the race time for gaining an advantage off the track. So Nick Moss has a 3-second penalty applied. That could be hugely significant. Murat Hadaroglu under pressure from Florian Scholze here in the battle for 8th overall. Meanwhile, Dominic Baumann is still yet to find his way around Luis Diaz-Varea. Daniel Diaz-Varea, sorry. And here's a replay of the moment that has caused the penalty for the Optimum McLaren. Now, what did the BMW here do? Because I wasn't sure if the Audi had actually been overtaken by the BM. I don't think the BMW was past the 777 car until a little later on, so perhaps Denis Vacek has dodged a bullet here. We'll have to wait and see. Certainly, they were being investigated together, and now car number 72, that is the Optimum Motorsport McLaren, is listed as having a penalty. We're yet to see anything regarding Vacek and a potential penalty. Giardoni then in the race lead as we go on to this final lap of action at the Hungaroring. Well, it's not been a particularly action-packed stint for Kevin Giardoni. He's just driven off into the distance and now has a 19-second lead, has been just kind of cruising the car around, really. He's not setting the same pace as Moss or Vacek behind, but does he need to with such an advantage? This is going to be a huge moment for both Giardoni and Van Berlo, all set to take the lead of the championship here. Here's the battle for 4th position. This is the battle for 2nd in the Pro-Am class as well. Moritz Kranz trying to take 2nd in the Pro-Am offing, and 4th overall as well. The Pro-Am car's looking potent and competitive here. Car 16 has also got a 3-second time penalty. So Denis Vacek has also gained a 3-second time penalty, as Nick Moss ahead of him has also. That shouldn't really affect the result then. Nonetheless, Kevin Giardoni around the final corner now. Kevin Giardoni and Glenn Van Berlo have claimed an important victory for the number 19 Oregon Lamborghini team. What a result for Oregon. Both of their cars have now been to the top step of the podium. There is Owen Snotty crossing the line further back in the order. In 2nd place, though, crossing the line behind, is Nick Moss. and Nick Moss holds on to second place. Both cars with 3-second penalties, but those won't affect the order. And Moritz Kranz has just beaten Marcin Jedlinski to the line for the Pro-Am podium. So 4th place overall, and the Pro-Am 3rd step on the podium goes to Moritz Kranz and Janine Schaffner. Glenn Van Berlo there receiving the plaudits and the embraces as he and Giardoni claim the win. Florian Scholzer moved up to 7th place on the last lap there as well. And Dexter Muller just about held off a charging Steve Jans there to take 9th overall. 13th was the best that Leonardo Polcini could muster in the much delayed number 63 Lamborghini. Oregon team will have a mixed emotion across the 2 garages. The 63 car finishing well down the order and out of the points, whereas the number 19 has had a great day. Kevin Giardoni and Glenn Van Berlo chalk them up to the list of winners here at the Hungaroring. Great result for Giardoni and Van Berlo then. Nick Moss claiming 2nd position in that one in spite of his 3-second penalty. Vašek and Krohn taking the Pro-Am win and also 3rd in the overall order. That is a great job for the Racing Trevor crew. Schaffner and Kranz 2nd in Pro-Am and 4th overall ahead of Marcin Jedlinski and Karol Bash, who round out the Pro-Am podium. And so 4th in the Pro-Am podium, or rather 4th in the Pro-Am order, going to Daniel Diaz-Varela in the 93 car. Florian Scholzer rounding out the top 5. That, of course, the car, the 33 Team GT car that took the overall win yesterday. It's another AM class win, meanwhile, for Adam Osaka and Kiki Saknana. Adam Osaka got past for the AM lead in the closing stages of the race. Big congratulations to Osaka and Kiki Saknana. 81 points on the board for Giardoni and Van Berlo then. They assume the championship lead, and the highly competitive nature of this GTOpen championship continues to show itself. Just 3 points between the top 2 in the championship, and Kevin Giardoni beside himself with excitement after what has been at times a bit of a challenging year this season. And they now are race winners in the International GTOpen Championship.
Bravo, Kevin!
So then there you see a move. This was Steve Jans up against Dexter Muller. A bit of a replay here. Oh, hip check 1. Was there another? Dexter Muller just about held on to it. And what's going on here? Oh, Erwin. Oh no. I think that's Murat Chahadaroglu. Yes, Chahadaroglu and Muller had a moment there. And I think that was on the cool-down lap. That didn't look like that was going on at racing speeds. That's a bizarre moment, isn't it? I'm fairly sure that happened on the cool-down lap because Steve Jans obviously backed right out of it. Well. What a day it's been. What a weekend it's been at the Hungaroring. We had a safety car laden drama fest yesterday, and we've had a mega race today for good measure. Vašek and Krohn take the Pro-Am win and 3rd overall ahead. Nick Moss and Joe Osborne continue a successful weekend here at the Hungaroring, taking 2nd overall. But the winners for the first time this year, Kevin Giardoni and Glenn Van Berlo.
Glenn Van Berlo, Kevin Giardoni, this time the victory came.
Finally, after a difficult qualifying today where I messed up, I think we did a really good job today in the race where we recovered quite strong. After a good start, we kept it safe, quite consistent throughout the race. I brought it in on, I think, P3, and then Kevin finished the job. So big thanks to Oregon for the amazing car today, and also Lamborghini.
So many times so close to the very top. Now it's done, and now fully in the race for the champion.
Yeah, as Glenn said, finally we had a win, so we never give up. We are working hard together to try to win, so today we won, so I'm so happy. I would like to thank Oregon team and Lamborghini Squad Corse for this opportunity. Glenn did an amazing job at the start, and I tried to finish and administrate the last part of the race, so I'm so happy.
Well done, guys. Enjoy the moment.
Thanks.
Highlights then from the second race of the weekend at the Hungaroring. It was David Fumanelli on pole position, and he led in the early stages. Yannick Mettler tried to get up the inside of Joe Osborne. Carol Bash went for the outside run at turn 1. That didn't quite work in his favour. Joe Osborne held on to second place despite Yannick Mettler's best efforts. Contact between Valentin Pierberg and Roman Zamian sent Zamian into a spin, and Pierberg gained a penalty for his car as a result of that. Korzanowski, the AM-class runner, was running very high up the order in the early stages in the overall top 10. Fran Rueda getting together with Korzanowski and getting through some very physical fights up and down the order. The Racing Trevor BMW handed over from Jesse Krohn to Dennis Vashek. McLaren handed over to Nick Moss. Meanwhile, this was a move for, at the time, was the Pro-Am lead, as Marcin Jedlinski moved up into first in Pro-Am. Yannick Mettler, Dexter Muller then also was dispatched by the Racing Trevor entry and Dennis Vashek. That was Murat Hadaroglu losing places as he fell through the order, and then there was a controversial moment here. The big V12 Aston Martin getting in the way of Marcin Jedlinski. And ultimately, Moss and Vashek received penalties, but Giardoni and Glenn Van Berlo, race winners in International GT Open. Nick Moss and Joe Osborne take a podium, as do Dennis Vashek and Jesse Krohn. So we await the podium, and here comes the second place, third place duo. I think there was some hopeful stuff there from Dennis Vashek. He jumped on to the top step of the podium. Nick Moss and Joe Osborne do the same thing in retaliation, but there's only one crew that the top step belongs to today. That is Kevin Giardoni and Glenn Van Berlo. The Oregon Racing Team Lamborghini crew have done it. Both cars now winners. There you go, the Italian national anthem playing for Oregon team there. And the champagne will soon be sprayed before the Pro-Am podium is put out there. You see they're posing for the pictures. And a great result for Oregon team. That pirate flag seems to make more and more appearances. The champagne is sprayed. And a great result for all concerned as ever. Nick Moss takes Joe Osborne out the champagne and immediately runs away at full speed. Smart stuff. Giardoni and Van Berlo with that well-deserved victory today. Jesse Krohn and Dennis Vashek. What a driver combination that is. I sincerely hope we see them again in GT Open. What a Pro-Am duo they are proving to be this weekend. There's Jesus Pereira watching on, the man behind GT Sport Organisation. Of course, a bit of a racing legend in his own right in the Group C and early GT era. Pro-Am podium will be next. It will be Marcin Jedlinski and Carol Bash on the third step of the Pro-Am podium. So a great effort, I would say, for Olymp Racing, because of course they had to replace their engine overnight. An engine was driven from the Nürburgring to here at the Hungaroring for the Olymp Racing crew. And it was installed in the morning here before qualifying. And so Jedlinski and Bash put in a great showing. There are the Olymp Racing guys. Janine Schaffner and Moritz Kranz on the second step of the Pro-Am performance. And there you see the winners of the Pro-Am class, all very cordial up here, isn't it? The winners of the Pro-Am class, Denis Vacek and Jesse Krohn. So then Vacek and Krohn claiming the Pro-Am honours in this one. We'll also give a shout out to our AM class winners once again, Adamo Seika and Kiki Saknana, who won the AM class. But as the Pro-Am podium continues, it's time for us to head off. We'll be back at the Red Bull Ring in September after the summer break. But for now, thank you so much for tuning in to the International GT Open at the Hungaroring.